Okay, so this time you've brought us something that is really got people talking.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, this idea of like selling U.S. citizenship to people, if they're wealthy enough foreigners.
Hmm.
And it all kind of goes back to something that Trump said in an interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox News.
Right,
And he was talking about this concept of a gold card, basically.
right.
It's like
Pay to play.
if you have $5 million,
Yeah.
you can get citizenship. It's like a fast track.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a fast track to citizenship if you're, one of the world's elite
Right.
and you've got $5 million lying around.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
So for this deep dive, we're going to look at, what's the reasoning behind this?
Right.
According to the source material, and the source material you gave me is this transcript from the Ring of Fire YouTube channel.
Right.
And they're breaking down this whole interview.
Yeah, they're responding to this Fox News interview.
Right. So we need to kind of wrap our heads around, like, what are the responses that this has generated?
Right.
And what are the key things for us to know about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most interesting things right off the bat is like the central justification.
Okay.
Like, why is he saying that this is a good idea?
Right.
And according to this transcript, it's really fascinating because he's presenting it as America first.
Oh, okay. So let's unpack that for a second.
Yeah.
Like, how does selling citizenship for $5 million
Right.
equate to this idea of America first?
Right.
Because on the surface, that sounds a little counterintuitive.
Yeah. And I think the connection that he's trying to make is through economics.
Yep.
It's all about the money. So his argument basically is if we sell, say, 1 million citizenships
Okay.
at $5 million a pop,
Uh-huh.
then we could generate $5 trillion.
Okay.
Right. And that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah. That's a significant chunk of change.
And so what is he going to do with this $5 trillion?
Right. Where's they gone?
He wants to reduce the national debt.
Oh.
So the America First angle here is that it's good for America
Right.
to reduce our national debt.
Right. It's this idea of like a direct financial benefit,
Exactly. It's like a direct economic benefit.
almost like a supply side approach to debt reduction.
Yeah, exactly. And the transcript also mentions this other rationale that he gives.
Okay.
Which is all about like, who are these people that are going to be paying $5 million for citizenship?
Right. Like, what is the caliber of the people who would even consider this?
Right. He's saying that basically anyone who has $5 million
Uh-huh.
to throw around to get citizenship,
Right.
they're probably going to be job creators.
Okay.
They're going to be successful.
They're already successful.
They're not going to be a burden on the system.
Right.
They're going to contribute
Okay.
through their wealth and their, business acumen and whatever.
So it's this assumption that if you have money, you must be good at business.
Right. And that you're going to create jobs and opportunities for other people.
Okay. And the transcript even gives a specific example that he uses
Yeah.
about, like top tier foreign graduates that companies want to hire.
Right. So he talks about like Apple, for example.
Okay.
Wanting to retain these graduates from these top universities.
Right.
Wharton, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, all the big names.
Right.
And he says that these companies might be willing to pay $5 million to keep these people in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
because they're so talented.
Right.
So that's another economic argument.
Right. So it's like, well, these people are worth it, so we're going to make it easier for them to stay.
Exactly. It's all about the economic advantage of
Okay.
retaining these bright minds.
So then we get to this question that Laura Ingraham asks in the interview,
Right.
which is in the transcript. She's like, why should citizenship be for sale?
Yeah, she basically says, why should citizenship be for sale at any price?
Right.
Especially your America first.
Right.
Like, how does this work?
It's a good question.
It's a really good question. And the commentator on the Ring of Fire points this out.
Okay.
It's a powerful question on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should citizenship be something that you can buy?
Right. Is it just a transaction?
Right. Is it just a commodity?
Right.
But they also point out that by adding this, especially given the fact that you are America first,
Right.
it kind of waters down the question.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like saying, well, if it wasn't America first, then maybe it would be okay to sell citizenship.
Right. So the America First label is actually kind of complicating this.
Yeah, it's complicating a more fundamental ethical discussion
Right.
about what citizenship even means.
Right. So let's get into some of these counter arguments
Okay.
that the commentator brings up, because they were not buying it.
Well,
They were
yeah.
very skeptical of Trump's logic here.
Yeah, they were skeptical of the whole thing. And especially this idea that like all these wealthy people are just going to be lining up to pay $5 million
Right.
for U.S. citizenship. They're like, why would they do that? Right. These people already have comfortable lives.
Yeah. They're already set.
They're already set.
Like, what's the motivation?
Yeah, what's the incentive to pay this much to
Right.
come to the U.S.?
It doesn't seem like there's a huge incentive.
Yeah, and the commentator makes this point that if these people really wanted to come to the U.S.
Right.
and they had the money,
Uh-huh.
they probably would have done it already.
Right. There's easier ways.
There's easier ways. There's cheaper ways.
Yeah.
And so why are they waiting for this $5 million option?
Right. Exactly. It seems very impractical.
It does.
And what about this argument about companies
Right.
paying for these foreign graduates?
Yeah, the commentator had a response to that too.
Okay.
They basically said that this is very unlikely because these graduates,
Yeah.
as talented as they are,
Right.
they're still employees.
Right. They're not running the companies.
Right. They're not CEOs.
Right.
They're just starting out.
Right.
And so is a company really going to pay $5 million to keep one employee?
Right.
Especially when there are already visa programs
Right. Exactly.
for skilled workers.
There are already systems in place.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem economically efficient.
Right. And like, how many companies can even afford that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's a huge outlay
It is.
for just one person.
Right.
So then the transcript also gets into what they want to call this thing.
Oh, yeah. The name.
And Trump was saying that his people want to call it the Trump card
Oh, my God.
instead of the gold card.
It's so on brand.
I know. And the commentator's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're basically like, he probably came up with that himself.
Right. He probably did.
Like, it's so transparent.
It's so Trump.
It's so Trump.
That's so Trump.
Like, come on.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's like a marketing ploy.
It is. And it's like this huge controversial proposal.
Right.
But all he cares about is the name.
Right. It's all about branding.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the commentator makes this distinction.
Between how dumb this whole thing is
Right.
and the seriousness of his other economic ideas.
Right.
They're like, yeah, this is kind of funny.
Yeah, they're like, it's so detached from reality, it's almost funny.
Right. Like, it's almost absurd.
Yeah.
But then they're like, but his other economic ideas
Right.
are actually really scary.
Right. They're like, don't get too distracted by this Trump card thing
Right.
because the real stuff
Right.
is like the stock market and tariffs and trade wars and deportations.
Right. Like, those are the things that are going to have a real impact.
Exactly. Those are the things that we should be worried about.
So it's like this weird contrast
Yeah.
of like this one idea that's just so out there.
Right.
And then these other ideas that are like, oh, this is actually really bad.
Yeah. It's a strange mix.
So to kind of summarize what we've talked about,
Okay.
it seems like the big takeaway is that Trump is saying
Mm-hmm.
that this $5 million citizenship
Right.
is America first
Right.
because it's going to bring in all this money
Yeah. $5 trillion.
and it's going to attract all these job creators.
Right. All of these successful business people.
But then the source that we looked at
Yeah.
is very
I was
skeptical
very skeptical.
on that whole logic.
You're just not buying it.
They're like, that's not how it works.
Right. They're like, this is not practical and it doesn't make sense.
And it's all very politically motivated.
Well, it's totally political.
Like, even the name,
Yeah, the Trump card.
the Trump card.
Come on.
So we've got this $5 million price tag.
Right.
We've got this justification.
Of reducing the debt and bringing in job creators.
Right.
But then we've got all this skepticism
Yeah.
about whether that's actually going to happen.
Right.
And it's all wrapped up in this America First rhetoric.
Yeah. And this branding exercise.
Yeah.
This whole discussion just brings up so many questions.
Right.
Like, does this change what it means to be a citizen?
Yeah, like what is citizenship
If you could just buy it,
if it's just a commodity?
what are the long-term consequences of that?
Right. What kind of society are we creating?
Right. Like, what happens if we implement this?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. So it really makes you think
It does.
about what we value.
Yeah.
Like, what do
Yeah.
we value as a nation?
Right.
Because if it's just money,
Uh-huh.
then what does that say about us?
Yeah, what does that say about our values?
Are we okay with that?
That's the big question.
That's the big question.
for all of us to consider.
Yeah, so there you have it.
There you go.
That's our deep dive.
That's the deep dive.
Into selling U.S. citizenship.
The Trump card.
The Trump card. See what happens.
See what happens.